What's the quarterback situation looking like for UCLA this week? And, are the freshmen going to do anything this year for UCLA men's basketball? Duh. More on this on Locked On UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer, and thanks for making the show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. So like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for your support every day. Or hey, you locked in, let's have a little mini reaction to that UCLA men's basketball first game of the season. Not what we expected. Still not everybody fully available, whether it's not academically, but NCAA-wise or just everything in between, yet the Bruins got the win. And where we start today's episode is with UCLA football, because we didn't talk about the grades for the Arizona game. We're going to start with that here today. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. All you got to do with Game Time, create an account, get the Game Time app, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, one word, LOCKEDONCollege, for $20 off your first purchase. For UCLA, their first purchase this upcoming week might be a quarterback, a healthy quarterback. News and notes from practice I read from people who were at practice were the likes of both Garbers and Moore, both back at practice doing things compared to the Monday practice. Tuesday, Moore and Garbers were there, and for those two guys, they were practicing, although apparently Garbers had an apparent limp, and then Dante Moore a little limited. So we'll see if that means it's Cullen Schlee and a combination of what many people wanted to see, the Justin Martin show. I think it should be Chase Griffin before Justin Martin, although it would make more sense for everybody to see what Justin Martin possesses. I would just like to see Chase Griffin play another game because he's a baller off the field. I love him to see a baller on the field as well. Anyways, it's looking like we might see a more appearance, a Garbers appearance. We'll see between how health develops over the rest of the week, if it's even Cullen Schlee pressed into starting action against Arizona State. Because all three of these guys played the game against Arizona and were slightly banged up. Obviously, Garbers knocked out, Moore knocked out, Schlee reportedly a little out of breath with that upper body injury, which has been reported as a sternum injury, yet it didn't all end up changing the game. I think UCLA, for the most part, it was very frustrating in that game in Tucson. Homecoming for Arizona. They're riding high. They're absolutely fantastic, and their little winning streak, 3 in a row against ranked opponents each and every week. And now they're ranked, and they're going to be ranked based on what they've done over the last few weeks. So let's get to the offense, defense, special teams for this UCLA team, where it was just so frustrating to watch this game, the third and whatever game I might call it. Again, the third road game, the third game they came in. And yes, I know I saw all those comments where it's like, yo, what are you talking about, Zach? The Arizona dominated, or UCLA should have won this game. There's so many different ideas. The fire Chip Kelly, the Chip Kelly stays. It's just head on going against each other. We're going to touch Chip Kelly and more of that later in the week for the pod. We're going to save that for a little later topic in the Locked On UCLA podcast episode, upcoming shows. But for now, here we go. Offensively, absolutely frustrating. Again, absolutely frustrating. Your defense makes an early play, gets you on the doorstep of scoring, and you can't go punch it in. We're going to talk about special teams later. You can't punch it in. UCLA in this game only threw for 157 yards, barely completing about 50% of their passes. Whether it's Garbers 13 for 21 with a touchdown pass, debatable whether Carson Ryan caught it. We won't go there, but he caught it. Touchdown right before the half. Dante Moore 4 of 7 before getting knocked out. And then Cullen Schlee, who went 0 for 5 throwing the football. 0 for 5 in 5 passing attempts, who was the leading rusher despite having 0 completions in 5 attempts. 6 carries for 46 rushing yards, nearly 8 yards a carry. There wasn't a lot of love for the receivers this game. J. Michael Sturdivant, 3 receptions, 17 yards. Logan Loya, the leading receiver for UCLA for a second straight game after the Colorado breakout performance. but only 3 receptions for 42 yards. No Maliki Matavao. It was a Hudson Habermill day with a catch. It was just a frustrating game where the Bruins couldn't run the football as successfully as they would have liked. 114 yards, a little under 4 yards per carry in about 30 carries in this game. UCLA, man, it was just a frustrating game. You go back to the numbers that look worse than what it seemed like, but yet Arizona won in every statistical category, whether it's converting on third downs, stopping UCLA's run, rushing for a little bit more yards, and holding UCLA to field goals where they couldn't convert. The offense just wasn't fully there. There's opportunities where they blew it right deep in the Arizona red zone. They drop a snap that it's 3rd and long, and UCLA's playing behind the 8 ball because Arizona had 3 sacks and 4 tackles for loss, 5 passes defended against 5 pass breakups. Man, the offense, it just wasn't having it today. That was a D performance for the UCLA offense. 10 points, could have done a lot more. At the minimum, you could have had 19 points because they went for it down 2 scores late in semi-field goal territory, missed 2 field goals. So they could have had 19 points when it's all said and done. It's just a bad performance. I'm just done. I was just frustrated with that game. A lot of people saying Garbers is not the answer. Moore is not. Schlee needs to start. Justin Martin. There's so many different opinions about this UCLA football team right now. It's just spinning in my head. Spinning, and still spinning. D performance for the offense. That's just how it is. Defensively, UCLA made a couple of plays. They had the early pick of Fafita, one of only mistake Fafita had in this game, 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, an interception, 25 of 32. So with the early interception, another interception from the likes of Alex Johnson, nearly taking it to the house with a 37-yard return. And apparently we didn't realize this. UCLA needed to return it all the way because they were not going to score after the failed play. The pick maybe get some hope for the defense. But then Arizona rushed the ball seemingly more successfully than any other team against the Bruins, who have one of the better rushing numbers defensively in the country coming into the game, and probably still after the game as well. They were able to, 1, run the football, 130 yards. That's not a mind-blowing total with 35 carries. They actually had less yards per carry than UCLA, mostly because the Bruins had a total of 11 tackles for loss in this game, and were able to get some stops. But there's just some easy runs when the Bruins needed to get stops. Michael Wiley, 4 carries, but he would have almost 7 yards a carry. Jonah Coleman, but he would have almost 4.5 yards per carry. That is chunk yardage in spots where the Bruins needed to get stops. The longest Arizona run was 19 yards. They weren't getting huge yards. They were just getting mini chunks. Just imagine like an axe against wood. And you're little chunk here, right? You're just getting bits and pieces, and they move the ball. And when the Bruins needed to get a 3rd down stop, Fafita would complete a pass. Sometimes on a 3rd and 6, you saw Arizona ran the ball, got a 1st down. Whatever they needed to do, Jetfish dialed up the right play. They got the blocking, and they made all the right plays. They executed. Arizona is a team that can execute. Limited turnovers, limited penalties, limited mistakes on special teams. And while the UCLA defense, I'm not going to say got truly carved up in what we've seen terrible UCLA defenses do in the past, it certainly was their worst performance of the year. Absolutely was. And for that, you're going to get a D performance, D+, maybe C-. If I'm feeling really funky at the end of this segment, I might get upgraded to a C-. Still, it was not the best performances. D+. They weren't completely run over, despite giving up nearly 430 yards. There's just got to be the idea. The quote was disunified, right? Sometimes I wonder if this UCLA defense, you could think about it, needs and tries to do too much. Making a play mentally affects them when they go out in the field and you're like, man, we got to make a play to get our offense into position and we can't give up a score. And they end up getting grinded down on a long Arizona drive or whoever they're playing and give up a score, thinking that they got to make every play. Like in the Utah game, the Oregon State game, the Arizona game played out similarly. Because Colorado didn't really know what they're doing, UCLA had an easier time stopping the Buffs in the Rose Bowl, despite the offense turning it over 4 times in the first half. Arizona is not the Colorado Buffaloes. They came out to play, and they have become a resurgent squad. The defense, D+, because it was their worst. I'm not going to say they weren't trying, obviously, effort in a loose term, but their worst performance of the season. It wasn't not something to not be proud about, but left a lot to be desired. They're going to have better performances later. D+, and hopefully a good resounding effort against a terrible Arizona State offense, missing a lot of pieces coming up. So I think it'll be a rebound performance for the defense that's angry, hopefully no longer disunified, as they were quote-unquote saying to the media. D+. Special teams. Block punt almost brought UCLA back in the game in the fourth quarter because of Kane Medrano's near heroics, getting a block punt, setting up UCLA on the doorstep to get a touchdown, to get within a score. Didn't happen. Special teams, they switched kickers. It was a kicker battle after RJ Lopez had struggled a little bit. Blake Glessner, who went 1 of 3 kicking field goals in this game, missed 2, hit a long of a 29-yard field goal. If he hits his first field goal, UCLA scores first, and maybe it's a completely different game with Arizona playing from behind, or maybe UCLA's not even down a touchdown. It's a whole different ball game when you just score first, even if it's just those 3 points. Even if it's just those 3 points off a turnover, that can make a difference in a game, specifically on the road like this one. But special teams, when you miss a couple of field goals, you're just going to get a DF. I know they blocked the punt. It was just frustrating. Frustrating. Again, we're going to look at these keys one more time. Turnover-free football. The Bruins did that. They didn't necessarily stop the run, and they didn't fully get the QB pressure they needed in a game they lost, and one that I once again predicted Arizona was going to win. 24-21, if you're looking. 24-21. I was shocked that UCLA was favored in this game, even if it was only 2.5 going in. But I still expected them to compete a little bit better than they would have in the final score indicated, and I thought they would have had a better chance to win this game. Although I was still shocked that they were favored on the road against Arizona. That was one that I think if you're betting on UCLA, that would have been a little rough. UCLA 6-3 outside the top 25. Arizona State comes to town. Should be a blowout victory, regardless of who's playing at quarterback, and we should expect a rebound performance. Worst game for UCLA this season, and in the grand scheme of things, this wasn't a horrible game. For this year's team and how close they've been in other games, and with the talent on the defense this year, we want there to be more promising signs offensively, regardless of who's playing quarterback, whoever's running the football, whoever's catching the football. There's signs. They just didn't show it in this game consistently enough to where Arizona, for a full 60 minutes, consistent ball club. Fundamentally sound. They play a great game, and the Bruins went up to the task to play a clean football game for 60 minutes. And that's what you had to do to beat this team in Tucson. That's going to do it for us talking about UCLA football, because quite frankly, we're going to have to talk about the Chip Kelly situation. Every UCLA outlet, show, anything is talking about to Chip Kelly, to not chip, to chip or not to chip. We'll talk about that later on during the week. Coming up next, though, UCLA men's hoops. What do we need to see from them moving forward now that their first game is under their belt? Obviously, Berke. Shooting, anything, anywhere? Bueller? Now, if you followed my lead and were wondering, should I take UCLA at Arizona to cover? I said no, because it was basically a toss-up, UCLA minus 2.5. If you went to FanDuel, all you had to do, if you're a new customer, get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bets. So if you had done that for the Bruins or Arizona and followed my lead, unfortunately picking against the Bruins, you would have won some money. Easily, if you're looking for ways to check out UCLA and Arizona State, I'm going to tell you, I think the Bruins are going to cover. Regardless of how crazy that line is, they're going to cover. Meanwhile, there's no better time to join FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, than right now. It's the best time to get in on the action. Wide range of betting options, spreads, player props. The app's super easy to use. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. When you're a new customer, you get a $5 winning money line bet get $150 in bonus bets. Check it out. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Cruising on to the second segment of the Locked On UCLA podcast, we talked football briefly because, honestly, that's all they deserved after that performance, and I was just frustrated. Other than that, UCLA men's basketball, unranked in most polls, number 25, and I believe the USA Today poll, got to show off all their shiny new toys, all the new freshmen, all the newcomers with Lazar Stefanovic, for the most part, outside of Berke Buyuktuncel, who did not play, still waiting to get cleared from the NCAA. I wonder if it's a 1 to 2 game absence beyond his already first game that he's missed. Still, the Bruins came away with the win against St. Francis, the Red Flash, 75-44. A lot of good things to like. The Bruins defensively, they came out. The Red Flash only shot 12% from three, 33% from the floor, only 7 field goals made in each half, so they struggled offensively. It's not like they came in and took it to the Bruins with a solid offensive effort. They scored 44 points in this game. UCLA scored 75, but it's because Adem Bona was an absolute beast and will be an NBA first-rounder, although he won't be dominating smaller bigs or slower bigs like he'll be facing in these first mid-majors game in the non-conference schedule before they go to Honolulu to play in the Maui Jimali Invitational. What is there we need to see moving forward? Much more outputs from the freshmen. Much more. A lot more. There wasn't a lot coming from the freshmen in this game. There's bits and pieces. They nickeled and dimed their way to an impressive night. Yet, you had 2 points in 6 minutes from Aday Mara, who had 3 personal fouls. Brandon Williams, 4 points, 14 minutes. You had Sebastian Mack, 9 points. We'll see a lot from him. But largely, Bona, Stefanovic, and Nuba, veteran players who Cronin, especially early in the season, is going to lean a lot on this team. Lean a lot on these veterans, and was very frustrated with his team's shooting. That's going to be a struggle and an emphasis all season long. Shooting going into this game. Didn't like his team's shots in the post-game presser. And UCLA, while they shot very well, 50% overall, almost 60% in the second half, can't buy a 3, needs to rebound a lot better. And their free throw shooting was subpar, 15 for 24. They're going to need those to get knocked down a lot in big-time games that are much closer than this one was. What do we need? A lot more production from the freshmen. Mara didn't start, had a limited amount of minutes. McCronin, despite calling Kenny Nuba America's backup, said, well, actually, he might start. And it went Nuba Bona for the first start. Those guys combined for a total of 9 rebounds and 38 points. You'd like Nuba to be a much better rebounder, but Bona is grabbing a lot of them. Stefanovic grabbed 8 rebounds. So overall, of the newcomers who impressed the most, if you include freshmen in the transfer, Stefanovic, easily Stefanovic, the best newcomer of them all. Well, you'd expect after 2 years of experience, he was, one of the recognized in his first couple of years at Utah where he would average nearly double figures, a shooter, didn't put in too many from three-point land, but double figures scoring, 4 assists, 8 rebounds, 3 steals. The prototype that Mick Cronin is looking for a UCLA basketball player is Lazar Stefanovic, a guy who can score, shoot, pass, rebound, defend, 3 steals to lead the team. That is your all-around Mick Cronin favorite player, and that's why he's going to play like 40 minutes a game. He's going to get the Tiger, Jaime Jaquez, 35 minutes a game because he's the leader that doesn't turn it over, can shoot it well enough, and is the best three-point shooter on this team currently. He's going to get a lot of minutes to space the floor, score the basketball in a variety of ways, and then he can play defense. That is what Mick Cronin loves. Now, you look to the rest of the guys. The best freshman, clearly Sebastian Mack, because he was the only freshman that was in the starting lineup. I wasn't really sure when he committed how much time he would get, what his role would be like coming into this freshman year. But then as it developed over the summer, what Mick Cronin kind of alluded to, they need his scoring. He didn't show a lot of that or need to in this game. 7 shots, 9 points. The inefficiency will probably be there throughout the rest of the season, even though he shot better than 50% in this game. Couple of steals, 2 assists, 1 turnover, decent assist-to-turnover ratio, 2-to-1 in game 1 for a freshman who's being asked to score. Easily the most impressive freshman. far and away right there. Sebastian Mack. Now, what we want to see, everyone wants to see, one, Berke on the floor. We want to see him on the floor. And then Aday Mara, Brandon Williams. We want to see V-Day. We want to see more from the rest of these guys. Aday Mara specifically is the one everybody's excited to see, and we didn't see a lot. Now, there's been a lot because he didn't play in the exhibition, didn't get to play in Spain, waiting for the NCAA clearance, and he barely got cleared right before the weekend of the first game. We need to see more specific from the international freshmen. They didn't do a lot. I was listening to Josh Lewin last night at a point, and he jokingly went by who's leading the scoring. He had Nigeria, Serbia, France, Spain, joking as, all right, the U.S. kids saying, all right, this is how much this country scored and all these things. And you realize, wait a minute, the leaders are the players who have been there, which is what you would hope to see. But UCLA needs most of these freshmen to step it up. They didn't need to in this game. They probably won't need to in the next couple of games. But when they go to Maui and they're playing Marquette, Mara hopefully is playing 10 to 15 minutes. Berke maybe gets in the game and plays 10 to 15 minutes and gets his sea legs underneath him to get ready to play for a long season. The rest of these guys need to play better. It was good. Defensively, the effort there. Offensively, shooting, rebounding, needs to be much improved for this team to truly contend and prove all the doubters in the preseason wrong that they're not a top 25 team. Some might say, like Jeff Goodman, not even a team that makes the NCAA tournament, which I think is absurd, but there must be vast growth from what we saw in the opening night to when they play Lafayette, when they play in the tournament, that Feast Week tournament, the Maui Jim Maui, to when they play all those tough non-conference games. There's got to be significant growth. That's what we need to see for UCLA. Rebounding the basketball, shooting the basketball, and we'd love to see a lot more from Aday Mara. Although there was some potential that he needed to grow a lot, he needs to build his game. He didn't have a lot of practice time with the team, didn't get to play real game-like scenarios with the team, and we got to see Berke get cleared from the NCAA. We'd love to see him get cleared and be able to play. He was the last one to sign, so naturally he's the last one that has to deal with all the compliance and everything in between. Hopefully he gets eligible soon, and we wait for him to play with this team and give a super tall lineup. I wait for when they can consistently play a Berke, a Bona, a Mara, and Andrew/Mac, or Stefanovic and Mac, or whatever it is. I can't wait for the day. That's just not at this current stage. They're just not there to play the ultra super big lineup. That'll happen, just not now. Just not now. You know what is ready? You know what looks like a refined product? UCLA women's hoops. They just absolutely obliterated their soon-to-be future conference rival in Purdue in the opener. Little close for a mini second there. Blew them out. And the Pac-12 showed out on the women's side of things. So much so that we need to talk about UCLA women's hoops, a top 4 team in the country. That's got to grow and be much better than the other teams that already had great performances on opening night. It's the middle of the week. You're wondering, do I want to see UCLA women's hoops, men's hoops, all these other games that are coming up, and you're going to wait to the last minute? I naturally do that too. I'm sitting here, do I want to go to a game? And the answer is almost 9 billion% of the time, yes. A resounding yes. That's where Game Time is going to have you covered, because you don't need to worry when you're buying tickets to the next big event. Basically, every UCLA basketball game, men's or women's, they have the fast and easy way to buy tickets for not just sporting events, comedy, theater, all near us. Last-minute deals, killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from the seat so you don't get stuck with the nasty view. You know, sometimes when you're watching a basketball game, you want to have a better view. Or if you just want to get in, they've got their best price guarantee that takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. And you can find deals literally until the start of the event, even an hour after it starts if you're a late arriver, as all they joke about with us SoCal fans. It's the place to find last-minute seats. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account with the redeemable code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCollege, LLEGE, all caps, Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Wrapping up Locked On UCLA today, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer with you guys. The Bruins, the women who are expected to have a great season in a pretty stacked Pac-12 the last year of the conference. The Bruins came out and looked pretty dominant. All right, 92-49 winners over the Purdue Boilermakers. A nice little crowd in a doubleheader between the women and the men. UCLA, in a dominant performance, had London Jones go for 20. Lauren Betts, the Stanford transfer, the number one recruit in the class of 22, come out, immediate impact. Immediately a difference for this UCLA offense, simply by having Lauren Betts on the floor for 20 minutes. By having her on the floor for 20 minutes. Then you had Angela Degalik, who's finally returned from injury, put in double figures in 20 minutes. Charisma Osborne, the team's leading scorer, didn't have to do much in 28 minutes of action. And then you had Kiki Rice, who was finding open players left and right, 10 points, 10 assists, a little double-double action. If there were more rebounds to go around, could have messed around and gotten a triple-double, but she messed around and got a double-double. Gabby Jaquez, 8 points in 25 minutes. Bessoir, who was a key post player and three-point shooter for the Bruins, more of a starting role in the last year, 20 minutes off the bench. Cam Brown, who normally would start, that veteran leader who you probably watch on social media, is super funny during practice. Yeah, 0 points, couple of assists, couple of rebounds, is not being asked to do much, but is a key player that can contribute during this season. So think about the depth for this UCLA women's basketball team. They shot 55% from the floor, 46% from three, 13 of 28. And with the depth and ability of this team, they've now got a low post score in Betts, 20 points, 7 rebounds on 9 of 11 shooting. 9 of 11 shooting. Think about those games they played South Carolina or Stanford. Would it be Brink, or they would just get Aaliyah Boss, just swat the shots out of nowhere. Betts gives them that option and immediately did so against Purdue. Now, they're going to face much bigger and better post players, but Betts can help add to that. And with her low post scoring, the Bruins doubled the Boilermakers in points in the paint, 40-20. And with both Kiki Rice, 10 assists, and Charisma Osborne having 7 assists, the team passed the ball all the way around the perimeter. On 35 made shots, they had 29 assists. Think about that. Basically, in every made shot, it was a pass to get somebody open, a lob to Betts, perfect pinpoint passing where you find a cutter baseline, kicks out to the wing, who finds an open shooter for 3 and knocked it down more often than not. Largely, it was London Jones, who went 6 for 11 from downtown. All of her made field goals were from behind the arc, 20 points to help lead the scoring with Lauren Betts. So you had a 20-point scorer who hit it from downtown, a 20-point scorer who got in the paint, and between those two players, they almost outscored Purdue by themselves. This team had 10 steals, limited turnovers for the most part, but forced close to 20 Purdue turnovers and just looked fantastic doing so in a game where UCLA outscored the Boilermakers in the second half by 25. Remember, in 22-23, this team, Corey Close's bunch, struggled closing out games. In close games in crunch time, sometimes, a lot of the time, until they got to the tournament, the Sweet 16 and the Pac-12 tournament, they kind of folded. This year's team, deeper, more veteran experience. They bring back someone from injury. They bring back a transfer, and it's like 2 whole players that makes this team a complete unit, basically, and they showed it off opening night. Now, there's a moment after a 24-8 start, Purdue slightly crept in it, back in the game a little bit, not enough to make it too interesting, and UCLA found a way to put this game away, which was something they struggled with significantly in 22-23. Why is this going to be a fun year for women's basketball on the Pac-12 side? Well, unfortunately, that team across town has one of the best players in college basketball, and she had a great effort, and they knocked off number 7 Ohio State in their opening game. That was USC. Colorado, who's a top 20 team, went and beat LSU, the reigning and basically unanimous, close to unanimous, number 1 team in the country, and beat them by double figures on a neutral site by 14 to 15 points. Colorado and SC on opening night, beating top 10 teams. You still got to beat Utah, who is the Pac-12 favorite. And this is a UCLA team that's poised to try and compete with the superstar crosstown, the favorites in Utah, now a somewhat darling in Colorado, who's a top 25 team that has the best win in the country, a neutral site domination of LSU that had Kim Mulkey just scratching her head saying, I don't know what to do, with Angel Reese and with Haley Van Lith, some crazy talent at LSU team. This is a stacked conference, and UCLA's got to be ready to go to figurative battle with this conference. It's going to be an extremely fun season on the women's side because UCLA is really good, and I think they can compete with the Stanfords, who were supposed to take a step back, but still always pretty good with Tara Vanderveer. SC, who's already got a top 10 win. Colorado, a number 1 win, a win over the number 1 team in the country. Utah is going to build there. Washington State, last year's darlings with the Pac-12 tournament run to get to the NCAA tournament. Really fun, and UCLA looked like a complete team on opening night. Now, it's only opening night, and we like them to do that on the last night of the season in the national championship game in more of a wide-open stretch, and this team has the potential, absolute potential to do so. Now, we just got to wait for this team to gel. Maybe Charisma Osborne can go for 30 at some point. We can see all the fun things. But this is a team that's ready to compete. And I know we got fun, big-time commits coming in, but to enjoy the last rides of Cam Brown and Osborne, and maybe others that we don't know. That's going to do it for Locked On UCLA today. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer signing off. We're to chip or not to chip on Wednesday. To chip or not to chip with Chip Kelly, because the fan base divided, quarterbacks divided, everything divided. Not a house divided like those flags that say UCLA SC, literally in-house divided between Bruins fans and Bruins friends and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and everything. Husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends, everything in between. We're divided as a Bruin nation, and I would like to address that again in the Chip Kelly era, which it seems like every year it's a frustrating development. We'll talk about that in next Locked On UCLA episode, and then we'll preview a little bit of Arizona State. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight, fight, fights. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.